Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Amplify Shopping Network, where we amplify new authors, creators, and people who are just out here doing really amazing things. So I'm really excited today to have author Janae Marks on the show to talk about her debut novel. And so Janae, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
I know, me too. So I just saw the announcement that your second novel is coming out next year. Well, we're still like really in the thick of promoting your first one. So I'm really thrilled for you that things are going really well. And I just want to jump right in to learn a little bit about your first book, which is From the Desk of Zoe Washington. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. So From the Desk of Zoe Washington is my debut middle grade novel, which just came out this past January from Catherine Teagan Books, which is an imprint of HarperCollins. It tells the story of 12-year-old Zoe, who is obsessed with baking. Her big dream is she wants to compete on the Food Network's Kid Bake Challenge show and become like a professional pastry chef when she grows up. But on her 12th birthday, she unexpectedly receives a letter from her father, who she's actually never met before, because he's been in prison her whole life. And so she decides to write back, and she gets to know him through their back and forth letters. And then she finds out something pretty surprising to her, which is that he might actually be innocent of his crime. And so she decides to set out and discover the truth about it. So it becomes a little bit of a mystery as she decides to figure out what happened with his case.
Mhm. That's amazing. So I remember when you came on to the show last year, right?
Yeah.
Right before it was published. And just from that, I was super excited to to learn more about this character and this story. And then I thought, well, my kids are really small. And so they now are 4 and 6. And so I thought it was going to be a little bit too much for them. But I was thrilled to find out that even though it's a middle grade novel, the telling of the story is still in a way that I think expands to even younger ages and probably even older, because we were listening to it the other day with on audiobook, and my 6-year-old was like, one more chapter, one more chapter. And after every chapter we stopped and I asked him different questions about, what he remembered or what was happening. And he was totally keeping up with the story.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. I mean, definitely one of my goals was to make the subject matter, because of course, with talking about, her father being a Black man who might have been wrongfully incarcerated, that's, bringing up
Mhm.
some tough themes of, systemic racism within the criminal justice system and that sort of thing. But one of my goals was to make it sort of like accessible to younger readers, because this is something that they may not know too much about. Their families might not be talking about it. They may not have heard of it before. And they're young. And so I don't want to, overwhelm kids, by the story and have it be beating them over the head about some of these issues. So I tried to weave it in along with other things like her baking and a friendship storyline with her and her neighbor Trevor, to try to still make it fun and accessible to kids while they can still be learning about and reading about this real issue that happens in real life. And then also, of course, there are lots of kids who have parents in prison. So there's also allowing those kids, whether or not their parent was wrongfully convicted or not. I mean, the reality is they're just not home. Giving them a
Right.
chance to see themselves in the book too is also nice to be able to do.
I mean, it's incredible because I like the line where she said, I didn't know like how to expect that someone in prison would be, right? She was very, from the first letter, she was very surprised that he sounded smart and that he sounded normal and that he sounded like a regular person. And I think that we forget that people who are in prison, whether they did it or not, are still people, right?
Yeah,
They still have
yeah.
people. In this case, she doesn't know him, but they still have people who love them. They still have people who are missing them. They're still people. They don't like just become monsters because they're
Yeah.
in prison.
Absolutely. I think, humanizing the people who are, incarcerated, like you said, whether or not they're guilty or not, or, it's even if they made a mistake, they're still a person, who deserves respect and potentially has lots of positive attributes, so it doesn't mean that, she can't have a positive relationship with him just because he was in prison. So yeah, that's definitely something that she's grappling with and trying to understand over the course of the book, how you could be, even if he does turn out to be guilty, you could be somebody who did something bad, but also be somebody who can be good to you and be worth that, relationship. It's not so black and white. That's definitely one of the themes of the book.
Yeah. And as a parent, right? As a parent and as someone who has a parent who was in jail, there's so many conflicting things in the story about how you manage parenting your child through a situation like this.
Right.
Like I'm trying to think about myself as a child and how I would have thought through it. And then now as an adult, as a parent, trying to figure out how do you decide how much information. I mean, the mom decided not to tell her about him at all. Like these are pretty big decisions. And I feel like, I don't know that there's a wrong decision, there's a wrong thing to do, but we can really only like operate within what we've been given, like the mom made the best decision that she thought she could during the time given, what she knew.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, when I write stories like this, I'm not trying to necessarily reflect what every parent would do or what every kid would do. It's just, what do I think these particular people would do in this situation? I think the mom has her own flaws, maybe she should have been a little bit more open, possibly, and I think over the course of the book, she learns a little bit more about forgiveness of Marcus as well. But I think, it's like you're telling a story about individuals. And as you said, everybody has to make their own choices. So I think at the very least, it can open up a conversation, amongst the readers, like, what would you do in this situation, so.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about what the reception of the book has been? I have been following you on Instagram, and I see that you've had a second publishing of the book. So it means it's doing pretty well. Can you talk a little bit about what the feedback from early readers and families has been?
Yeah. So it's actually been pretty great. There was definitely, my book came out in January, so things were great. January, February, I got the chance to really experience what it's like to be a debut author. But then, of course, COVID hit in March. And so things definitely changed. And that kind of put a ringer in things. And so I was worried. I think a lot of authors, other author friends of mine, especially ones who were debuting this year as well, were worried about what the impact of the pandemic was going to be on book sales. And, are people going to buy books during this time? I mean, yeah, we're all stuck at home, but people are also losing their jobs, and, it's just tough. So, but luckily, so there's two things. So luckily my book, I think, had already been out for a couple months. So there was a little bit of buzz building about it. And then the second thing that was kind of unfortunate, but led to some positive things, I guess, was sort of like once the Black Lives Matter movement kind of got going again after George Floyd's murder. And there was a lot more talk on the internet about amplifying Black voices. I don't know if that's why, how about, but yeah, like I think there was a hashtag amplify melanated voices, that sort of thing. There was a lot more attention being drawn to what are you reading? Like, what are you consuming? You should be consuming things by Black creators. And so there were a lot of lists that my book ended up getting put on. There was just a lot of boosting around of my book. And so I think that really did make a big difference in sales. So like, I think that was a really positive thing that came out of a pretty terrible situation, obviously, with the Black Lives Matter. The reason why all these protests were happening were terrible. This is one sort of little positive thing that came out of it, is that it brought more attention to Black creators. And so that was just one way in which I benefited. So it's kind of like a bittersweet thing, because you're like, yay, I'm happy I got more book sales, but it's obviously like I would have wished for it to have been under better circumstances. But yeah, so I think for that reason it helped. And I think people are just I think they're just relating to the book and the characters. I think it's timely. I didn't really know how quite timely it was going to be, but this is a relevant topic, that's been relevant for a long time, unfortunately, the concept of, especially Black men being wrongfully convicted of things. So I think parents and kids are interested in being involved in these kind of conversations and learning about these kinds of things, like real life things. And just in this age group, there's just been a lot more books for kids, about tough topics, not just about incarceration, but about mental illness, or about, abuse, about drug use, not amongst the kids themselves, but maybe just witnessing this in their lives amongst family members, so it's they're touching upon these heavier themes. Because kids witness this stuff, you could be kids at this age are in households with these kind of things happening. So more books are being published with this kind of content. So I think more kids are engaging and having conversations around these kind of topics. So seems like, I've been getting a lot of really great feedback. I think the kids are also really relating to the baking, which is like a fun part of the book. I put on my website a recipe that Zoe makes in the book. So a lot of kids have been baking them and posting
Oh,
pictures
that's
and,
great.
and tagging me. And so I think there's that fun aspect of the book too, that kids are relating to. So yeah, overall the feedback has been pretty great. Yeah, and it's even gone back, like as you said earlier, it's gone back to print a couple of times, so they've sold out of their print run and my publisher had to print more. So that's always a good thing
That
in
is a good
a
thing.
year. And the other thing I wanted to mention, so in the UK, the book actually came out in March under a different title. And that's because the UK publisher, I guess the phrase from the Desk of maybe isn't super popular over there. So they felt they wanted a new title. And so they came up with The Faraway Truth, which is still relevant to the story. And then they ended up getting a different illustrator. So I don't know. So this book
Yeah.
in the UK. So that's available, in all the UK countries, and I think in Australia and stuff like that. So it's been, I feel like, considering the pandemic and the fact that I couldn't do a lot of in-person events this year, I'm still pretty thrilled with how the book has done this year. So I can't complain.
Yeah, it's a thing. It is a sobering thing to be happy in the midst of chaos, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that we give
for me.
Yeah, we don't often give ourselves the space and the freedom to be happy if sort of generally things are falling apart, right? And it isn't to say that we don't care about what's happening in the world or around us, but to have to like forego your own joy, right, for something that's really good that's happening to you, it feels like just another another brick, right? And that we shouldn't always have to bear that weight. So I am really happy for you. I'm really proud of you. I like, it's cool to know an author. Like, it's so amazing. And when I tell my boys that, oh, I know her. I know the woman who wrote that. We look at your name and the woman who wrote, don't you remember will you play with her daughter, right? It's very cool to have something, a story like this, which speaks to me on so many different levels, from like a kid to a parent right now, to have it relate to me. And I forgot why reading is so amazing, right? Why being able to whisk away into another world is so important for all of us, not just for kids, because it allows you to process through some things.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, I mean, this book, I have had adults, even adults without children read it, and tell me that they, not only just people whose job is to read it, but, just people who randomly, discovered it. And I think I got an email from like somebody in her 20s and she was like, I know, like this is a kid's book, but I really, I felt, I saw myself in it. And I think that's another thing too. She's a Black character and a Black girl character, and there's not a lot. Now there's more, but it's only just in the last maybe 5 or so years that there's been more books being published featuring more mainstream books featuring Black girls of color and boys of color. So I think just being able to have that, being able to see yourself in a book, whether it means you're an adult now reading a book for younger readers. But I think this book, because of its themes and stuff, I think it can appeal to, like you said, a wide range. Because of the themes, I think it's still something that adults might enjoy for that reason. But books are a great thing during this pandemic to fall back on, because it's, we're stuck at home. We don't have much, we don't really get the chance to escape places. So like, but books are a way to kind of get to see new things and experience new things without having to go anywhere. So.
Absolutely. And I might go out and get the hard copy, because of course I went and got the digital copy, and I've been enjoying the audio version, the Audible version. Do you call them actresses? What are they called when they do the voice?
I guess they're or like the voice
actress.
Yeah. Or
so
the
one who
they might call her narrator. Something like that.
So she did a fantastic job adding
she's great.
Yeah, adding an appropriate amount of sass that I really enjoyed for Zoe, and even the parental figures, I enjoyed how she played them. Let's talk a little bit before we go about the location, right? The setting of the story is in Boston,
right?
And you and I both our whole situation, all of us went to the same school in
Right.
Boston. And so there was something transporting about
Yeah.
when you're talking about Beacon Hill and when you're talking about Medford and Medford High School. Like, can you tell a little bit about your inspiration setting it in Boston?
Yeah, so that was exactly my inspiration. I grew up in the suburbs of New York and now live in Connecticut, but I kind of just wanted to. I had the idea to just set it in a place that I have lived but haven't been in a long time, and so yeah, I set it in the suburbs of Boston, which is right where the college that we went to is located, and it was fun, like you said, to kind of just reminisce about the different places that I used to go to. I mean, I have her going to Davis Square in the book. I actually mentioned JP Licks, the ice cream store, and have since connected with them to like they ended up posting about the book on their social media and like did an interview with me in their newsletter. And so like now I'm like, oh, now if I go up there when the pandemic is over, we can like I can go there and visit your store with the book in person. But I don't know, it was just fun to like reminisce about that environment, and it's so I can still remember it all because we spent so much time living there. So yeah, that was basically it. I just thought it would be fun to try telling a story in a place like that, in a city like that. And I felt like the themes were relevant because I know that there's a lot of conversation about race happening in Boston and all big cities, really. So.
Absolutely. And then the last thing is tell us a little bit about why you think this would make a great gift. We're going into the gift giving season, and I remember as a kid getting books for Christmas or birthdays, especially when I was. I mean, this isn't a part of a series, but getting the next book in a series was amazing, or getting a new book that like was opening up to a new world. Can you tell people a little bit about why they should choose this book for their upcoming holiday gift?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, books are a great gift because, especially now, because kids, they're limited in what they can do. Even if they're going to school in person, they probably can't travel the way that they, go on trips or see everybody that they want to see or experience all the things they are able to experience in normal time. So a book is a way to kind of revisit some of the things you might enjoy in that form. But this particular book, I mean, it has a lot to offer, I think, for all kids, boys and girls, or non-binary, anybody. It's, it has that mystery element. It has the suspense about what happened to Marcus. Like, is he innocent? Is he not innocent? It brings up these themes that are great for, if a parent reads it alongside their kid, you can have those kind of conversations about, why do these things happen in our country? And it can help you kind of bridge over to talking about more serious topics. Some people have said that they paired it with, Just Mercy. That's obviously a book for adults, but as an adult, you could read that and maybe talk to them about some of the themes that come up in that, or even Stamped from the Beginning. There's a new version for young readers called Just Stamped. That talks about, like the history of racism and things. So you could use it as a way to kind of get the conversation started and then move on. If you want to talk more, you can move on to other texts. So there's that, but then there's also fun, there's the baking. So I think it is a well-rounded, personally, I think it's a well-rounded book that has a lot of themes. Also, I didn't talk too much about this, but it also has a friendship story that is very, I feel like a lot of kids relate to, that sort of thing that happens when you get to middle school and a lot of your friendships from elementary school start to change as you get involved in new things. And
I felt that.
Yeah, and like sometimes you don't know if they're going to last, like that's kind of what's going on in this book with her and Trevor. And so I don't know. I think like kids can really relate to it. So yeah, I think it's a great story for readers, for entertainment and also for learning something and getting the conversation started. So yeah, I hope you'll consider checking it out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So where can people, so I guess the first thing is you can find it in print. It's in softcover and hardcover.
So it's only in hardcover for now, but
it's only hardcover.
It's in the UK version is in paperback, but the US version, the US Canadian version is going to be in paperback in January. So this upcoming January when the paperback comes out. So so for now it's only in hardcover.
Hardcover.
Yeah, and it is an audio and then an ebook as well.
An ebook. Okay, great. Yeah,
and then get it anywhere books are sold. On any online retailer, any in-person retailer. I like to try to tell people to support their local independent bookstores wherever possible. Just because, in this time, a lot of them are struggling just as much, as any small business owners, during the pandemic, it's tough. So if you can support your local independent bookstore, do that. But if not, any bookstore should have it.
We don't have one nearby. And I will shout out People Get Ready here in New Haven, which is an amazing bookstore that focuses on books about people of color or written
Yeah, I
by
believe
people of
I've
color?
interacted with them a little bit on social media, so I'm pretty sure they should have it if they, yeah. So,
They do, they do, and they have a really great pickup, like contactless, or even deliver. They'll deliver on a bicycle.
oh, that's fun. Yeah.
It's fantastic. So wherever books are sold, you can pick up this book. Let me show you here. You can also follow Janae Marks and Zoe on social media here on Instagram. Your handle, can you tell them your handle on Instagram?
Yeah, so it's at Janae Marks Books with an S at the end, and that's on Instagram, Twitter, and if you happen to use Facebook. And yeah, and my website is just janaemarks.com. And that's also
Perfect.
where you can find the recipe that I mentioned. If you do read the book, the recipe that I mentioned, there's also a playlist of all the songs mentioned in the book. Marcus passes along a bunch of songs to Zoe in their letters. And so I created a playlist of all those songs. And then for any of the teachers listening, or even parents, like there's some reading book guides with some questions, that you can use as discussion questions. There's also that up there as well.
And they can find that on your website?
Yep,
or
that's
on that website.
Yep.
Great. Perfect. Perfect. Well, Janae, thank you so much for coming on and sharing the backstory about this book and sharing this story from you with the world. I'm really thrilled. We are a little bit through it, and I can't wait to finish it with my boys. We've agreed to 3 chapters a night, which is great because it ends up being about 20 minutes on the audio version. So,
right, well,
so it's very, very cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and for buying the book, and anybody else who has bought the book, and for supporting me. And if you are interested, I hope you will think about picking it up. And also, as a plug, if you don't want to buy it, another way that you can get it is from your local library. And if you have a library card and you have the Hoopla app, they do have the ebook and the audiobook on there as well. So so wherever books are sold, or the library. So.
Fantastic, fantastic. So thank you so much. And when it comes time to share about your new book, do you want to plug your new book? I know the title just dropped.
Yeah, so the all I have right now really is the title. It's called A Soft Place to Land. It'll be out next September 14th, 2021. Right now, there's no links, but if you go to Goodreads, if you happen to be a Goodreads person, you can add it to your to be read list on Goodreads. But otherwise, stay tuned on my social media, and I'll share more about that soon.
So good. So congratulations again. Thank you so much for sharing the story with the world and to coming on here to share it with our viewers. So I wish you all the luck, and I can't wait till outside opens again so that we can see you and so that you can get out, because I know that it is a different experience to be out in the world sharing the story at bookstores and at schools and that kind of thing. I think I can't wait for that to happen for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me and for being so supportive.
Absolutely. Anytime, we're here. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right, bye.